Hey, Morgan. So this is a variant that has been detected very early by geneticists in South Africa, doing a lot of surveillance work there. Here's why it's concerning. It has more than 30 mutations to the spike protein, which of course is the key protein that the vaccines target and allows the virus to infect cells. They call it a, quote, unusual constellation of these mutations, some of which are known and potentially give the virus the ability to be more transmissible and potentially to evade our vaccines or prior immunity from infection. But that is still being figured out right now. Now, in a press conference yesterday, South African researchers showed just how quickly this variant looks like it's sort of taken over in South Africa. Of course, they had a very dangerous third wave from the Delta variant. That was in the red there. You can see this blue spike there. It's very small, but that is this new variant B11529, which may get its Greek letter from the WHO today. And you can just see how quickly it's risen in terms of prevalence and becoming dominant there in South Africa. Importantly, though, guys, to put this into context, if you look at the total number of cases we are seeing in South Africa right now, it is still very, very small. It's just that tiny uptick right there at the bottom of that chart. And so this is very early days for this variant. The WHO should be giving more guidance on how concerning it looks to them. They say it could take a few weeks to really get information about it. Now, in terms of the vaccine makers, we've been in touch with them this morning. Moderna's CEO telling us they've shown before that they can rework their vaccines and develop new constructs in less than 60 days to get them into human clinical trials. Now, the question of the timing from there includes what regulatory process will be required. Will there need to be, clinical safety follow-up for a few months, for example, and then manufacturing new doses, they say, would also take a few months. BioNTech has pointed out they have leapt into action on this as well. They're already looking at this in the lab. They say they expect more data from those lab tests within 2 weeks at the latest. And they and Pfizer have shown they can adapt their vaccine within 6 weeks and ship initial batches within 100 days. So guys, the industry keeping very close eyes on this variant, as they do all new emerging variants. The scientific community is certainly alarmed about the number of mutations here and what's known about them. But they do emphasize it is very, very early days at this point, guys.
Meg, given the fact that it is very, very early days, and we know these mutations are associated with resistance to neutralizing antibodies, we know that it's potentially very transmissible, as you just laid out. How long until you start to see data on the severity of this variant and whether it's something that leads to more hospitalizations and deaths or something that people can manage through more successfully?
Yeah, so that's something that has taken some time, in previous variants to really tease out. It was thought that the Delta variant potentially was more severe at one point. And what's really difficult is when you have such a more contagious variant like this, more people are going to get it. And so, more people are going to go to the hospital, just the percentage of people, regardless of whether it's actually more severe. And so it can be difficult to tell. We don't have any information about whether it's more severe or potentially less severe than other variants at this point. So all of that will be looked at very closely. We did hear from the South African researchers in the Ministry of Health yesterday. They are worried about their healthcare system starting to get overwhelmed just if they get more cases. And then, of course, that proportion that does get hospitalized. So it's concerning, even if it's just more transmissible.
Meg, it's the point in the conversation where I bring up the oral antivirals, but I think it's important to do so. Obviously, Pfizer and Merck. We did get some new data from Merck in terms of molnupiravir that showed as they continued the trial, for which they'd already submitted the interim analysis, hospitalizations did actually rise in the placebo group a bit, but it does still seem quite effective in keeping people from dying, and a 30% reduction or so in hospitalizations. Panel meeting next week. Pfizer doesn't have a panel yet date, but these don't act on the spike protein, so their importance can't be underestimated, I would imagine, when we see variants like the one out of South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the beauties of both molnupiravir and Pfizer's drug as well is that they seem to be very broadly active across multiple viruses, not just SARS-CoV-2. And so the worry about variants is less. Of course, we need more information about this to be able to actually see this proven out. But that is what I'm hearing this morning from experts in these areas as well. The Merck documents from the FDA have posted this morning. We did see that efficacy when we got the Pfizer final count with more patients in the trial dropped to 30% in preventing hospitalizations and deaths from about 48% at the interim look. And it really looked like an improvement in this. People who got counted who were in the placebo trial, they did better in the second half of the trial than the people in the first half of the trial. So from the FDA documents this morning, it looks like the FDA is leaning toward clearing this, and its questions for the advisors is really what population of patients is appropriate here. They have specific questions about pregnant women. They also want to know about the risk that molnupiravir could lead to potential emergence of new variants because of the way that it works. And they want to know how broadly it should be used in people who are vaccinated or unvaccinated. All of that will be discussed on Tuesday.
Meg, thank you for breaking down everything we know and reminding us what we don't yet. Thank you. Always good to talk to you, Meg.